Imagine walking into a restaurant and being completely ignored. No one takes your order. No one even looks at you. Now, for an ordinary person, that might feel like a bad day. But what if that person was Cristiano Ronaldo, the global football icon, one of the most famous athletes on earth? Sounds impossible, right? Well, what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about success, patience, and power. Picture the scene: a classy restaurant in the heart of his city, the kind of place where every table feels like a front row seat to luxury. People dressed in sharp suits, clinking glasses, quiet jazz music playing in the background. And then the doors open. In walks Ronaldo. Not just any footballer. Cristiano Ronaldo, the man whose name fills stadiums with roars. Heads turn immediately. Whispers ripple across the room. A living legend just stepped inside. You'd think the staff would rush to him, right? Roll out the red carpet, offer the best table, maybe even take selfies. But instead, nothing. The waiters glance at him and then walk away. No greeting, no menu, no service. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 15. Ronaldo sits there, perfectly. Composed, no phone in his hand. No sign of frustration on his face. Just silence. Now, let me ask you something. What would you do in that situation? Be honest. Would you get angry? Would you demand service? Or would you storm out, post a rant on Instagram, and let the whole world know how you were treated? Most people would. But Ronaldo? He's about to show us why he's not like most people. What happens next isn't just about a restaurant. It's about life. Because here's the truth. Sooner or later, we all face a moment like this. A moment when the world ignores us. When people don't give us the attention, respect, or recognition we think we deserve. And in that moment, your reaction defines you. Do you fight for validation, or do you stay calm and let your actions speak? Louder. Ronaldo's response is something most of us would never expect. And yet, it's the very reason he's not just a footballer, but a global symbol of discipline and class. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't demand attention. He does something far more powerful. Something that turns the entire situation upside down and leaves everyone in the restaurant speechless. And here's the best part. What Ronaldo does next isn't just a story. It's a life lesson, one that could change the way you handle challenges forever. Because if the greatest player in the world can be ignored and still keep his cool, what excuse do the rest of us have? Stay with me, because in the next few moments, you're going to see exactly what happened and why it's the ultimate example of quiet strength. It started as an ordinary day for Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, as ordinary as life can be for one of the most recognized faces on the planet. The morning sun poured into his hotel suite, and the streets outside buzzed with energy. A city alive, people rushing to work, tourists snapping photos, and in the middle of it all, Ronaldo, the man everyone wants to see. That day, he had no training, no match, no press events. Just a rare, quiet afternoon to himself. And for a man whose life is scheduled down to the minute, these moments are gold. He decided he wanted something simple. Not a grand party, not a flashy event. Just a good meal at a well-known, high-end restaurant downtown. The kind of place people rave about online. The kind that makes food an experience. He put on a casual yet sharp outfit. Crisp white shirt, tailored jeans, designer sneakers. No flashy jewelry, no loud accessories. Ronaldo didn't need those things to stand out. His presence alone could turn heads anywhere. Sunglasses on, he slipped into his car and headed toward the restaurant. The driver, knowing who he was carrying, kept his eyes forward, hands steady. No unnecessary chatter. Just the quiet hum of the engine as they moved through the city streets. When Ronaldo stepped out of the car, a couple of fans noticed him immediately. Phones came out. A few whispers. Someone said, "Is that Ronaldo?" The superstar nodded politely, gave a quick smile, and walked toward the entrance. No security detail, no entourage, just him. That's how he liked it sometimes. Simple, normal. But what happened next? No one could have predicted. The restaurant doors opened with a gentle push, and the cool air inside greeted him. It was a beautiful space. Warm lighting, marble floors, soft music in the background. Every table seemed perfectly arranged. Every plate positioned like art. It wasn't packed, but it wasn't empty either. A handful of people were dining, laughing softly, enjoying their meals. As Ronaldo entered, a few diners glanced up. Recognition spread across their faces like wildfire. A man almost dropped his fork. A woman whispered to her friend, "Oh my God, that's him." Heads turned, and yet, from the staff, nothing. Not a single waiter came forward. No manager. Rushing in to greet him. Not even a quick, "Table for one?" The mater d', standing behind a polished wooden stand, barely looked up. Just a quick glance, and then back to his screen. Strange, Ronaldo thought. But he didn't let it show. He simply walked to an empty table in the corner, near the window. It had a nice view of the street outside, sunlight spilling across the polished surface. He sat down and waited. 1 minute passed, 2, 5. No one came. He looked around. The waiters were busy, but not too busy. They attended to other tables. They smiled at other customers. They refilled glasses, took orders, carried plates. But him? They acted as if he wasn't even there. Was it a mistake? Maybe they didn't notice him walk in. Maybe they thought he was waiting for someone. But after 10 minutes, it started to feel deliberate, like they were avoiding him on purpose. Ronaldo leaned back in his chair, calm as ever, no phone in his hand, no restless tapping on the table, no sighs of frustration, just patience, pure, quiet patience. Inside, though, he couldn't ignore the question. Why? Why was he being ignored? This wasn't about ego. He didn't need anyone to worship him. He just wanted to eat. But something about this felt odd, unnatural. Meanwhile, the other diners kept stealing glances. Some wanted to approach him, ask for a photo, maybe an autograph. But they hesitated. After all, this was Ronaldo, the man whose time is priceless. You don't just walk up to someone like that, right? But the staff? They acted like he didn't exist. No eye contact. "No, sir. Would you like a menu?" Nothing. 15 minutes went by. Still nothing. And here's the thing. For most people, this would be unbearable. Imagine being ignored in a restaurant. Now multiply that by 1,000 because you're Ronaldo, a global superstar. It would be easy to get angry, to demand attention, to call the manager and say, "Do you know who I am?" But Ronaldo? He didn't do any of that. Instead, he stayed composed, hands folded on the table, a slight smile on his face, like a man completely in control. But inside, he knew something interesting was happening, something that would soon turn into a story worth remembering. Then, a small moment, a spark. One of the waiters walked past his table, carrying 2 glasses of wine. Ronaldo caught his eye for a split second. The waiter froze just for a moment, as if realizing who he had just ignored. But then, he kept walking. Why? Was it some kind of policy? Was it personal? Or was it something else, something deeper? At that exact moment, Ronaldo made a decision. He wasn't going to leave. He wasn't going to demand service. He was going to sit there, calm and unshaken. Because sometimes silence is more powerful than words. Sometimes the way you handle being ignored says more about you than how you handled being praised. Not little did anyone know, this quiet moment was about to explode into something unforgettable. The diners had no idea. They were about to witness a masterclass in composure. The staff had no clue their biggest test was sitting right there, waiting. And Ronaldo? He was about to show why greatness isn't just built on goals, trophies, and fame. It's built on moments like this. When the news broke that Cristiano Ronaldo had been left waiting at a restaurant, most people couldn't believe it. Social media went wild. Memes popped up everywhere. But the big question buzzing in everyone's mind was this: what did Ronaldo do? Because let's be honest, if this happened to anyone else, we already know the script. The waiter skips you. The staff ignores you. Most people lose it. They slam the table, raise their voice, maybe even walk out in anger. And honestly, that's what everyone expected from Ronaldo 2.y. Because he's not just anyone. He's Cristiano Ronaldo, the man who has entire stadiums chanting his name, the guy who can shut down traffic in any city. If he even frowns, the world pays attention. That kind of fame changes people. It makes them demand special treatment, even in the smallest situations. So, picture this: Ronaldo sitting there, being ignored. Fans expected a show, maybe a dramatic exit, a fiery argument, or even a social media post calling out the restaurant. After all, we've seen celebrities do it before, blasting businesses online just to prove a point. That's the reaction everyone saw coming. Because let's face it, in today's world, pride runs the game. People are quick to defend their ego, quick to say, "Do you know who I am?" And if anyone has the right to say that, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. 5 Ballon d'Ors, Champions League titles, world records. His achievements speak louder than words. But here's where the story takes a turn. Instead of reacting the way everyone predicted, Ronaldo does nothing. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. He sits, calm, collected, almost like he's in no hurry. At all. And that's the part nobody saw coming. People expected a storm, but what they got was silence. The kind of silence that makes you curious. You see, when a regular person keeps quiet, nobody notices. But when someone like Ronaldo stays calm, the world starts asking, why? Think about it. Cameras were probably ready. Someone in that restaurant was itching to post a video of Ronaldo losing his cool. They wanted that viral clip. Football. Superstar explodes at restaurant. Headlines, tweets, TikToks, you know how it goes. But he didn't give them that. He didn't give anyone that satisfaction. Instead, he just waited, like it didn't even bother him. Like he had all the time in the world. That's power. Not the kind that yells, not the kind that makes a scene, but the kind that controls the scene without saying a word. And while the staff kept rushing past him, clueless about who they were ignoring, Ronaldo was teaching a silent lesson. Real. Confidence doesn't need an audience. Now, let's be honest. If this were you or me, could we do the same? Could we sit there patiently while everyone around us treats us like we're invisible? Most people can't. Our pride won't allow it. We want respect, and we want it now. That's why everyone expected Ronaldo to react like the rest of us. Loud, angry, demanding attention. But that's where he separates himself from the crowd. He understands something most people don't. The moment you let anger take control, you lose. It doesn't matter if you're the richest, most famous person in the room. The second you blow up, you've handed over your power. And that's why Ronaldo didn't give them the reaction they expected. No raised voice, no dramatic walkout, no social media rant. Just patience. Calm, deliberate patience. Because when you master your emotions, you master every situation. But here's the twist. While Ronaldo is sitting there quietly, something is about to happen. Something that will flip the entire room upside down and make everyone question what just happened. Because Ronaldo might be calm, but he's not ordinary, and the next move he makes, it's going to shock everyone watching. The waiter walks away, completely oblivious to what just happened. The hum of conversations returns to normal. A sound of cutlery clinking on porcelain plates fills the room again. People laugh, glasses clink. The restaurant continues as if nothing extraordinary occurred. But inside Ronaldo's mind, a storm is brewing. Not the kind you're thinking of. Not rage, not ego, not humiliation. Something far more dangerous. Something most people underestimate. Calm focus. He leans back in his chair, slowly, deliberately. The light from the chandeliers reflects off his watch as he folds his hands, resting them on the polished wooden table. He doesn't speak. He doesn't call the waiter back. He doesn't even glance at the manager. Instead, he does what almost no one in his position would do. He observes. The man who's known for speed on the pitch now becomes a statue in the middle of this bustling room. And as he sits there, silent, the smallest details start to jump out at him. The couple in the corner, arguing quietly but pretending everything is fine. The businessman at the bar, laughing too loudly to hide his nerves before what looks like a big meeting. The chef peeking from the kitchen door, scanning the tables for feedback. Everywhere he looks, Ronaldo sees patterns, behavior, energy, human nature laid bare. And then his eyes return to the waiter, the same waiter who skipped him. The guy is moving fast, balancing trays, smiling at some tables, ignoring others. And Ronaldo notices something most people would miss. The waiter isn't skipping him. Out of disrespect. He's overwhelmed, stressed. His rhythm is broken. Ronaldo smirks. Just a small one. Because now it makes sense. And here's where it gets interesting. This is the part where most people would react. Most celebrities would snap their fingers, demand service, post a rant online, make a scene. That's what the world expects. But not him. Not Cristiano Ronaldo. Because Ronaldo knows something the rest don't. Control isn't about dominance. It's about presence. And as he sits there, soaking in the chaos around him, he remembers something. A match, a moment years ago. A Champions League night, when everything seemed to fall apart. The crowd was against him. His teammates doubted him. The press wrote him off. And what did he do? He didn't panic. He didn't fight the noise. He studied the game. He waited for the opening. And when it came, he struck like lightning. That's what this moment is for him. A test, a mirror. Because life, in its strange way, always repeats itself. Different stage. Same principle. So Ronaldo leans forward, picks up his water glass, takes a slow sip. The world might think he's been humiliated, but in reality, he's setting the tone. His silence is louder than any outburst could ever be. And here's the most fascinating part. People start to notice. First, the couple arguing stops for a second. Why? Because they feel it. That calm energy coming from the man everyone knows. The businessman at the bar glances over. His laughter dies down a little. Even the chef in the kitchen peeks out again, sensing something has shifted. It's subtle, almost invisible. But this is the power of a man who doesn't need to scream to be heard. The power of composure. As the waiter rushes past him again. Ronaldo's eyes follow him, not with anger, but with curiosity. He studies his steps, his hands, the slight tremor when he carries the plates. And in that instant, Ronaldo understands something deeper. This isn't about service. It's not about food. It's about life. Because here's the truth. The world will skip you sometimes. People will overlook you. Opportunities will pass you by. Not because you don't deserve them. Not because you're invisible. But because life gets messy. People get distracted. The rhythm gets broken. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can fight the chaos, or you can master it. Ronaldo chooses the second. He sits there, calm as a monk, watching, waiting, learning. Because patience, in his eyes, isn't weakness. It's strategy. Minutes pass. 10, 15, long enough for the discomfort to spread. Like smoke through the room. People start whispering. Phones come out. A few bold ones take sneaky pictures. They know who he is. They know what's happening. And they're waiting for the explosion that never comes. But Ronaldo? He just smiles. Not the fake kind. A real one. The kind that says, I know something you don't. Because here's the secret. While everyone else is focused on being served, Ronaldo is serving himself something far greater. Perspective. He's reminded why he became who he is. Not because everything was handed to him. Not because life always played fair. But because he learned the art of staying unshaken when everything around him was chaos. And that's when the real twist begins. The waiter finally turns, notices the quiet giant sitting in his section, and freezes. His face drains of color. The tray in his hands wobbles. He realizes the mistake, and for a split second, their eyes lock. The panicked eyes of a man who knows he messed up, and the calm, steady eyes of a man who doesn't need revenge to. Feel powerful. What happens next? That's where the story takes a turn you won't see coming. The restaurant was alive with its usual rhythm, forks clinking against plates, low conversations humming like background music, and the occasional burst of laughter echoing from a distant corner. But for Ronaldo, everything still felt frozen. In that strange silence, he had been sitting there for what seemed like an eternity. His table still empty. Not a single waiter approaching. Not a single acknowledgement that the greatest footballer on the planet was seated right here. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe they didn't recognize him. Maybe it was an oversight. But as the minutes passed, the truth began to settle. Like a cold shadow. He was being ignored. Most people, in his place, would have done what the world expected. Snap their fingers. Demand service. Maybe even storm out in anger. That's what the internet would have loved to see. A headline screaming, Cristiano Ronaldo loses his cool at fancy restaurant. But Ronaldo didn't give them that show. He didn't play that game. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, took a slow breath, and started observing. And then, something changed. A waiter passed by, balancing a tray stacked with plates. Ronaldo's eyes followed him, not with irritation, but with curiosity. He noticed the sweat on the man's forehead, the slight tremble in his arm, the hurried pace that suggested a kitchen in chaos. Then came another waiter, running to a table where a family with children was waving impatiently. The place wasn't just busy, it was overwhelmed. Ronaldo's competitive brain, the same brain that analyzed defenders in split seconds, started piecing the puzzle together. This wasn't about disrespect. This wasn't about ego. This was about a team under pressure. A system stretched to its limit. And in that moment, something sparked inside him. A decision that would flip the script entirely. He stood up slowly. Chairs creaked as nearby customers turned their heads. A few gasps broke out. Cristiano Ronaldo was on his feet. And for a second, everyone assumed the same thing. He's leaving. He's done. But he didn't head for the exit. Instead, he walked toward the counter, calm, composed, almost smiling. The staff froze. The manager blinked like he was seeing a ghost. Is everything all right, sir? The manager stammered, already bracing for the storm. But there was no storm. Ronaldo's voice was calm, almost warm. Everything's fine. You look busy. Can I help? The manager blinked again. Help you? Yes, Ronaldo said simply. Show me what to do. The room fell silent. Phones came out like weapons in a duel. People started recording because they knew whatever was about to happen was going viral. And then, without another word, Ronaldo slipped behind the counter. The greatest goal scorer of all time, the man who dominated the Champions League, now standing in the kitchen of a crowded restaurant, wearing no apron, no uniform, just his crisp white shirt and a smile that disarmed everyone. He started small, carrying plates, balancing trays, delivering dishes to tables with the same precision he uses to deliver goals. And every step he took sent ripples through the room. Customers whispered in disbelief. Kids stared with wide eyes, unable to process. What they were witnessing. Ronaldo didn't just help. He transformed the energy of that restaurant. The waiters, who had been drowning in stress moments ago, suddenly felt a surge of adrenaline. They weren't just working. They were playing alongside a legend. One of the chefs peeked out from the kitchen and nearly dropped his ladle. "Is that Cristiano Ronaldo?" "Yes," someone whispered back. "And he's serving table 7. But here's the twist. Ronaldo wasn't doing this for attention. He wasn't doing it for cameras or headlines. He was doing it because that's who he is. A man who sees chaos and looks for solutions. A man who understands that leadership isn't about demanding service. It's about serving when no one expects you to. As he walked to the next table, placing a plate with the grace of a professional, he thought about football, about how, in every match, when things get tough, the real leaders don't just wait for the ball. They go get it. They fill the gaps. They do the work no one notices. And now, here he was, applying that same philosophy. In a restaurant. By the time the kitchen caught up and the pressure eased, the atmosphere had changed completely. Laughter replaced tension. Applause broke out randomly as Ronaldo moved between tables like it was the most natural thing in the world. Finally, the manager approached again, looking both apologetic and awestruck. "Sir, please, you've done enough." Ronaldo smiled. "Have I?" The manager shook his head, almost laughing. "You've done more than anyone could. Imagine." And just like that, Ronaldo walked back to his seat. Not a trace of anger. Not a single complaint. When his food finally arrived, he thanked the waiter with a handshake and a smile that spoke louder than any words. Respect is earned, not demanded. This was the turning point. The moment that changed everything, not just for the people in that restaurant, but for millions who would see this story and wonder, what would I do if I were in his place? Because Ronaldo showed us something rare. He showed us that real greatness isn't loud. It doesn't throw tantrums. It doesn't demand attention. Real greatness rolls up its sleeves and works quietly. The restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm by now. The clinking of cutlery, the soft murmur of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter, everything blended into the background once more. But for the staff, for the owner, and for those few who had witnessed what happened, the silence inside their minds was deafening. They had just experienced something rare, something they would never forget. Cristiano Ronaldo had walked in, been ignored, and instead of anger or ego, he gave them something else. Kindness. Not a dramatic display, not a fiery speech. Just quiet dignity and unexpected generosity. And now, the weight of that gesture was sinking in like a stone into water, creating ripples that touched everyone present. The young waiter who first greeted him stood frozen near the counter, playing the entire scene over and over in his head. He remembered how Ronaldo smiled at him even when the service was slow, how he never once snapped or raised his voice. And now, the man had left behind a tip so large it felt unreal, 10,000 euros. For a meal he barely touched. The waiter's hands trembled slightly as he thought, why would someone do that? especially after being treated like nothing special. It didn't make sense. Not in the world they knew. In a place where people flaunt power, where status demands respect, and where anger is the currency of the ignored, Ronaldo had done the opposite. He had chosen humility. He had chosen to give when everyone expected him to take. The owner of the restaurant stepped outside for some air, staring at the darkening sky, his chest heavy with guilt. He had seen Ronaldo a dozen times on TV, scoring impossible goals, lifting trophies, breaking records. A global superstar. And yet, in his own restaurant, he had let the man sit there, waiting like an ordinary nobody. Why? Because the place was full, and they assumed he'd wait just like everyone else. But Ronaldo didn't just wait. He taught them something. Not through words, but through action. And that's where the real lesson lies. People expected him to pull rank, to demand attention, to remind them who he was. And honestly, he could have. With one phone call, one post on social media, he could have ruined the restaurant's reputation forever. But he didn't, because Ronaldo understands something most people don't. True greatness isn't about how loud you are when things go wrong. It's about how calm you remain. Not in a world where everyone is quick to react, quick to fight, quick to prove their worth. Being silent is power. Being kind when you're ignored? That's strength on another level. Ronaldo didn't leave behind money just to look generous. That tip was more than a gesture. It was a statement. You didn't see me, but I still see you. And isn't that the kind of greatness we rarely witness anymore? The kind that doesn't need an audience? For the staff, that single act became a mirror, a reflection of how they treated people, of how they judged worth based on appearance and expectation. And maybe, just maybe, it made them question, how many times have we ignored someone who deserved better? How many times have we let our assumptions decide who matters and who doesn't? But here's the twist. That lesson isn't just for them. It's for us too. Because how many times in life do we feel overlooked, ignored, underappreciated? And when that happens, what do? Most of us fight for attention. We raise our voices. We demand to be seen. But Ronaldo's story shows another way, a better way. Instead of fighting for the spotlight, create your own light. Instead of letting bitterness win, choose grace. Because true class isn't loud. It's quiet. It doesn't need applause. To feel real. As Ronaldo walked out of that restaurant, his phone buzzed. A friend had texted him. Where are you, champ? He smiled, typed back a simple reply. Just had dinner. No drama. No announcement. No social media rant. He didn't post a single photo, didn't share the story for likes or praise. Because for him, the act wasn't about the world knowing. It was about doing the right thing when nobody was watching. That's the deeper lesson. Greatness isn't built in stadiums under bright lights. It's built in small, quiet moments when your ego whispers one thing and you choose another. And maybe that's why Ronaldo is who he is. Not just because of the goals, the trophies, the records, but because of this. When life ignores him, he responds with grace. By the time the staff closed the restaurant that night, everything had changed. The 10,000 euros tip was still sitting in the drawer, but the real value wasn't the money. It was the realization that humility is rare, and greatness doesn't need to shout. And somewhere out there, Ronaldo probably smiled to himself as he drove home, not because he proved anything to anyone, but because he stayed true to who he was. And now, as the dust settles on this story, let's pause for a second, because what just happened wasn't about a restaurant. It wasn't about a missed meal or a waiter forgetting a reservation. No, this was something bigger, something deeper. When Ronaldo walked into that restaurant and they skipped his table, the world expected fireworks. They expected anger, frustration, an ego explosion. But what did he do instead? He stayed calm. He smiled. He chose patience over pride. And that choice, that single decision changed everything. Think about that for a moment. We live in a world where respect is demanded, not earned, where the first instinct is to react, to fight, to shout, "Do you know who I am?" But Ronaldo didn't do that. He didn't pull rank. He didn't throw his name around like a weapon. He let the situation play out, quietly, calmly. And in that silence, there was power. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Power isn't about forcing people to notice you. Power is about being so grounded, so confident, that their attention, or the lack of it, doesn't change who you are. Ronaldo knew who he was when he walked into that restaurant. And nothing, not even being ignored, could take that away from him. That's what made him unshakable. That's what made him dangerous in the best way. Now, let me ask you something. How often do we face this in life? Maybe not in a five-star restaurant. Maybe not with waiters skipping our table. But in other ways. At work, when your efforts go unnoticed. At home, when the people you love take you for granted. On social media, when nobody likes that post you worked so hard on. It hurts, doesn't it? It makes you want to scream for attention, to force the world to look your way. But here's the secret. Attention isn't the goal. Alignment is. When you know your worth, when you truly understand what you bring to the table, being ignored stops being an insult. It becomes an opportunity, a test, a moment to prove to yourself, not to them, that your value isn't up for debate. That's what Ronaldo showed us. He didn't need validation to feel like a champion, because champions don't wait for applause. They create their own stage. And that's the lesson you need to carry with you today. When life skips your table, don't panic. Don't beg. Don't lose control. Sit there. Breathe. Smile. Because the moment you do, you take back the power. You stop playing their game and start winning yours. Ronaldo knew that. And in doing so, he turned what could have been a humiliation into a story of humility and strength. A story we're still talking about now. So the next time you feel invisible, the next time you're overlooked, remember this. You are not defined by who notices you. You are defined by what you do when nobody's watching. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, but I'm not Ronaldo. I'm not a global superstar. Let me tell you something. You don't need to be. Because this isn't about fame or fortune. It's about mindset. It's about how you carry yourself when life forgets your name. Are you going to crumble? Or are you going to rise? Because here's the truth. Every great story starts with being underestimated. Every legend begins in silence. And every champion learns to wait. Ronaldo didn't become Ronaldo overnight. He spent years being overlooked, being told he wasn't enough, being benched. And do you know what he did every single time? He kept working. He kept showing up. He kept believing long before anyone else believed in him. And that's what you need to do. Stop chasing validation. Start chasing greatness. Stop begging for the spotlight. Become so good, so undeniable, that the spotlight has no choice but to find you. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't reward the loudest person in the room. It rewards the most consistent. The one who stays calm when everyone else is losing their head. The one who doesn't let a skipped table or a skipped opportunity define their destiny. So here's your challenge. The next time life skips your table, don't react. Don't explode. Don't let ego take over. Instead, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would Ronaldo do? He'd smile. He'd wait. And when his moment came, he'd shine so bright that everyone else would wonder why they ever looked away. That's not just a mindset. That's a weapon. And now it's yours. Take this lesson. Live it. Because greatness isn't built in moments when everything goes right. It's built in the quiet, in the waiting, in the moments where nobody sees you, but you keep going anyway, God. So, what does this story really teach us? That true strength isn't about loud reactions. It's about quiet confidence. Ronaldo didn't need to shout. He didn't need to prove himself with anger. He simply acted, and that made all the difference. And now, I want to ask you something. What will you do the next time life ignores you? Will you complain? Or will you rise and show the world your worth without saying a word? If this story inspired you, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Maybe a friend who's been struggling. Maybe someone who's been overlooked. Let them know that being ignored doesn't define them. And if you want more stories like this, stories that make you think, stories that motivate you, stories that push you to be better, then hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Because trust me, the next story, it's even more powerful, and you don't want to miss it. Until then, stay strong, stay humble, and remember, silence can be your loudest victory.